The very, very common question of which founding father would be the best guy to bro down with and slam a bunch of beers doesn't have a lot of great answers. The majority of the founding fathers were rich, white assholes who didn't bathe, so there's a lot of knuckleheads in the group and it's hard to choose. In general, for me personally, owning slaves is at bare minimum a vibe killer. And if owning slaves is a prerequisite for me not hanging out with you, that disqualifies a full 41 out of 56 of the men who signed the Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson graped slaves. George Washington had a set of slave teeth. Not the coolest fellas. Even among the founding fathers who didn't own people, your options for hangs were not great. That list includes people like John Adams, who was 5'7", and Alexander Hamilton, who we all know rapped constantly. In the middle of regular conversation, he would just bust into a rap. Very, very annoying guy. There is one guy who I do think, at minimum, would be a pretty fun time to throw back a couple cold pops with, and it's Mr. $100 bill himself, Benjamin Franklin. A couple quick counter arguments for Ben. Ben did own slaves in his younger years, but by the end of his life, he was actually a pretty staunch abolitionist. To me, an essential part of being a good hang is owning up to your mistakes, and acknowledging that slavery is wrong is a good thing to acknowledge. Why do I think Benjamin Franklin would be a good hang? For one, he thought the national bird of the United States should be a turkey. Now, at first, that one actually sounds like an argument against Ben. I mean, what kind of chuckle fuck monkey brain lunatic would pick the turkey, basically an off-brand peacock, to be the national bird of the United States of America? The kind of chuckle fuck monkey brain lunatic that I'd love to have a beer with. You need someone around you who's going to say crazy shit like that so you can argue with them at 2 in the morning in a violent and loud way that scares away all women. I think Ben Franklin would be the best hang out of any of the founding fathers because he's a deviant wild card who literally wrote the book on drinking. When I say Ben Franklin wrote the book on drinking, I literally mean that. In 1737, Ben Franklin wrote a pamphlet called The Drinker's Dictionary, in which he listed just literally 200 different ways to say drunk. Here's some of my favorites. He has taken Hippocrates' grand elixir. He's eat a toad and half for breakfast. He's burnt his shoulder. He's got his top gallant sails out. He's as conditioned as a puppy. And he's killed his dog. He's killed his dog is 1000% going to get added into my daily vocabulary from now on. There's got to be a story behind that one. What the fuck could that possibly mean?
And let's take a look at the Atlanta offense. Michael Vick.
Now, to be fair, Benjamin Franklin was not actually a sloppy, fall-down drunk lunatic who would eat frogs for breakfast and kill dogs and stuff.
Michael Vick.
He was actually pretty pro-moderation, but he probably never had to deal with the peer pressure of being called a lame pussy, and I think I could break him because of that if I needed to. But honestly, a moderate drinker in the context of an 18th century colonial American would be the drunkest that I've ever been in my life. You see, Benny F. has this famous quote that's, "In wine there is wisdom, in beer there is freedom, in water there is bacteria." It just goes to show that in the same way Jordan's Bulls played in a different league, Ben Franklin drank in a different bar. In 18th century America, you literally couldn't drink the water. All you could do was drink booze. One estimate says that the average American would drink 3.7 gallons of just rum every single year. This doesn't even include the beer, wine, and cider that everybody, including the kids, was drinking back then. 3.7 gallons of rum is 315 shots or jiggers. With a J. That's apparently what Google calls a shot. That little silver thing that bartenders use to measure alcohol is called the jigger, apparently. I feel like we should change that. It's so close. It's so close. Some other estimates say that colonists used to drink up to 3 times as much as Americans do today. So even though Ben Franklin practiced moderation and compared to other colonists, his moderation could reasonably be my sloppy blackout, where I pee in my friend's sock drawer and I go on a rant about how we really, really need to change the name of what bartenders use to measure shots. I'm rambling a bit here, but my point is if I tried to keep up with Benjamin Franklin, he'd probably drink me under the table and still be able to guide his horse and buggy home. And I'd probably kill a dog and be within 1 letter of a very, very dangerous zone. I also want my founding father that I'm hanging out with to be a bit of a wild card for the sake of fun. And Benjamin Franklin was always getting into some crazy shit. When you think of Benjamin Franklin, one of the first things that pops into your head is probably the story of him flying a kite with a key on it in the middle of a lightning storm. The traditional story goes Benjamin Franklin hooked the key up to a kite and ran out into a thunderstorm and got shocked by lightning, and then, oh my god, he discovered electricity. What does that remind you of? Because to me, that sounds like my friend Brendan after 23 bush lights on a Wednesday night. That's the kind of guy you want to hang out with. The actual story is a bit less awesome. He didn't discover electricity. He just showed that lightning was electricity. And he also didn't get electrocuted. He had a kite with a key on it attached to a string, and the string was made out of half hemp and half silk. He was standing in a shed holding the silk part while the hemp part got all wet in the rain and conducted electricity. He was bummed out because nothing was happening at first, but then he saw like the hemp part of the string had the little hairs sticking up like when you rub a balloon on your head, and he went to go touch it and it shocked him. Boom, lightning is electricity, I guess. Not as cool as the traditional story where he's running around in a thunderstorm like a maniac, but you know, it's still pretty cool to be that curious, I suppose. He also invented a bunch of cool shit. One of the big ones is bifocals. He was very committed to seeing well. Obviously, seeing is good, but Benjamin Franklin was so committed to the idea that seeing was good that he invented an entire new way to see good. Being that good at seeing means that Benjamin Franklin was probably a sniper when it came to drinking games. Beer pong, beer die, beer ball, all of them, Benjamin Franklin would probably be a good partner. Can't say that about Alexander Hamilton. If the die hit his cup one time, he'd probably go into some rap about how the die dropped in and his heart is stopping, but he better start drinking instead of doing all this thinking about his next throw, which he better not blow. Doing that sent a very painful cringe up my spine. I don't understand how Lin-Manuel Miranda does it. In order to have the courage to get up on stage and rap like a founding father, I would have to get so drunk that I killed a dog. Now, not every invention that Benjamin Franklin did was awesome. He made some voluntary contributions to catheter technology, which is honestly kind of a strange move. It's a bit of a red flag for anybody I hang out with to invest their time in perfecting the catheter. I don't really know what I would do if I was hanging out with one of my buddies and he started going on a rant about how the shit he's shoving in his cock is not really comfortable enough. Like if I'm playing pool at a bar with my friend and he's talking like, yeah, so my problem with the wooden ones is obviously the splinters. It's just tough to get the tweezers in there. And then he tries to hand me like a pool cue with a bit of blood on the top. I'm probably going to grab a different cue. He can have that one. Sorry if the catheter joke made you feel kind of weird and gave you a tingle in your undercarriage. That wasn't my intention. Sometimes I get carried away with a bit. I'll take a wooden one over a glass one any day. When one of those breaks, whew, that's a tough way to spend a Tuesday. One thing I do appreciate about Ben's commitment to surgical sounding is that he was trying out new pipes to put into his John Hancock while he was telling King George to lick the underside of his nuts. I really do appreciate that kind of fight, even if the thought of catheters makes me go, the one wild thing that Ben Franklin did that would really hamper the hang is hang out with his cock and balls out all the time. He was very committed to being naked all the time. He could not stand having his musket and cannonballs not out in the open. He also didn't believe in bathing in water. He bathed in the air. He would sit in a chair for like at least an hour a day, spread eagle with the windows open, and bathe in the cold air, which doesn't work. It's a power move for sure. I just think it would get a little bit old if you were going to hang out at Benjamin Franklin's house and he's watching you walk up his driveway with his Jefferson out, smelling like dog shit because water hasn't touched his skin in weeks. Can you live with a founding father who does that? I don't know. Again, Thomas Jefferson raped slaves and George Washington had dentures made out of slave teeth, so you know, I guess I'll take the nudity. Along with the drinking ability and the wild card behavior, I think Benjamin Franklin would also be a good hang because of his love for the fairer sex. Even in a time when women couldn't vote or own property or work or do really anything at all, Benjamin Franklin was kind of supportive of them, at least. When he was younger, he actually wrote a bunch of articles for the New England Current while pretending to be a middle-aged woman named Silence Dogood. After some dork wrote to Silence Dogood basically that she was a whiny broad who should stay in the kitchen, Ben, as Silence, responded, "One would wonder indeed how it should happen that women are conversable at all. Their youth is spent to teach them to stitch and sew or make baubles. They are taught to read indeed and perhaps write their names or so, and that is the height of women's education." That's honestly a pretty supportive thing to say about, you know, how women should be educated in 18th century America. Again, Thomas, I'm an asshole, Jefferson, raped slaves. And that's a worse way to treat women, in my opinion. A little bit of light feminism is not the only way that Benjamin Franklin showed his love for women, though. You see, Benjamin Franklin loved women so much that he actually had sex with a lot of them while he was married to one. Here's some of the many women Benjamin Franklin loved. His wife, Deborah, she took care of the kid that Ben had with a prostitute, you know, supporting sex workers. Shout out to Benjamin Franklin. She mostly chilled at home while Benjamin Franklin went out and did revolutionary stuff and slept with other women. Margaret Stevenson. Ben stayed at her house while she was in England. He got super sick, breathing filthy, disgusting British air. Understandable. And she nursed him back to health. Getting fed chicken noodle soup while you have a cold? Dude, shit. He did seem to be pretty into her 18-year-old daughter, Polly, which, you know, little weirder. You got to follow that half your age plus 7 rule at minimum. Then there was Madame Brion de Joy, a French woman who called him Mon cher papa. Apparently, she watched while he played chess in a bathtub naked with another man, but there was a plank over the top of the tub, so it wasn't gay. 2 dudes sitting in a tub, plank over the top, so it's not gay. Dude shit. So yeah, Benjamin Franklin loved the ladies a lot. If you ever put a $100 bill into the thong of a stripper and felt kind of guilty because it's 2 p.m. on a Wednesday and you have a wife at home, just know that that's exactly where Benjamin Franklin would want a picture of his face. So you can go home and you can tell your bitch wife that putting a Benji in between Cinnamon's butt cheeks is actually respecting your nation's history and you're a patriot because of it. So yeah, the very, very common question of which founding father would be the best guy to bro down with and drink a bunch of beers doesn't have a lot of great answers. They were all, for the most part, pretty shitty guys who I don't think I'd like very much. But if I did have to choose one, I think Benjamin Franklin would be a solid choice. Seems like he was a guy who could drink, he was into doing crazy shit, and he also was a lover of the ladies. That's all you can ask for from a founding father who you're trying to bro down with. I think I would really love getting drunk with Benjamin Franklin and flying a kite in the lightning, as long as he doesn't try to put a catheter in me. I think I could get drunk enough to maybe kill a dog.
Michael Vick.